I want to talk about camera motion in being the Ricardos. Because I know that was a big, at least based on what I read this morning, it seems as though that was a big discussion between you and Aaron, and you wanted to really think about the best way to approach movement in the film. So let's talk about that. How did you approach it?
It goes back to him wanting, two things. One, supporting the script and the story, but creating, not moving the camera for the sake of moving, because then you're lacking content, but creating scenes where actors move so that you have to follow them, so that you create tension or drama if it's one of those scenes, or intimacy if it's that. And because there's so much dialogue that goes on in Aaron's scripts. I'll tell you just a little side note. We started the movie, and I think there was 140 pages in it, and it wanted to fit in 2 hours, roughly 2 hours 5 minutes. And throughout the prep and of the movie, more pages kept coming till we were 189 pages.
Wow!
But the producer was like, "Oh no, it's still 2 hours and 5 minutes." How does that happen? How do we add 40, 50 more pages? And it's the same. And then, of course, people talking over top of each other, rapid fire. Each scene's full of a lot of words. And so it does. It's just that energy and that kind of chess game that the verbal chess game that he plays with each character. And so knowing that, you want to create situations where people don't get lost, where you can actually, the camera's not flying around and you're missing the weight of the words or what the meaning of the words are, but you want to keep it interesting, and you want to block out scenes where people are not just stuck in chairs and sitting, which is something that we talked about a lot beforehand, making sure that the cast was alive and it wasn't, we weren't confined or didn't feel claustrophobic at all. And so we would just block each sequence and get the cast in and try to figure out where places were comfortable, or where they, one scene that I'm particularly fond of, the way it blocked out, was there's a scene where Madeline, one of the writers, Nicole wants a private conversation with her, and they come out of the writer's room office and they go down to a tiny little corridor, right? And, and so when we were scouting, we were trying to figure out a place. We knew where the office was going to be, and we knew where Jess's office was going to be. In this room, where would they stop? And Aaron wanted it to be a little they could get their privacy for a minute, because it was an intimate conversation. So we looked at all the different places, and that corridor seemed like the perfect place. But that corridor was just a flat wall and a fire escape side door. There was no light, no window. And I asked the art department if they could put a window in. So that's one of the places where I used LEDs, because there was only a space this big between that and a fake window. And so we built the window. It looked beautiful. That was the source of light. And then I asked Nicole and Madeline to play, to see if they could juxtapose, if there was any time in that move when they're walking around where it would be kind of Aaliyah, I used her character name, Aaliyah and Nicole, where they felt like they'd want to kind of size each other up and switch positions, and they loved the idea. And so they get in there, and it's very confined. It was kind of hard to get coverage, but we got 2 cameras in, and they would just kind of do this dance, and they came in and out of light and half light and silhouette and half light and back. And it's such a great scene, the words that they're saying to each other and whatnot. And so it just worked out. And that was them and us all blocking it together, which could have been very kind of confining, rudimentary 2-shot for the whole time, turned into this little dance that really paid off for us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that scene, because what I was getting at with my line of questioning, as far as how are you approaching camera movement, that scene to me really cemented in the idea that the movement was really more in the blocking than anything else.
Yeah.
And these dialogue scenes that could otherwise just kind of be bland, if they could be shot in a bland way, because people are just talking. There was this constant feeling that there was movement and momentum, but it wasn't even coming from the camera, which I thought was such a unique way to approach it. And that scene in particular, I think, does a really good job of doing it because of that constantly switching directions. Your 2 characters are changing place all the time. And what I guess now that we've talked about that, my follow-up question to that is, when you go into scenes that is so dialogue heavy, wall to wall dialogue. Does it change the way you shoot? Because you don't really have the opportunity to have like a big opening shot or like somebody enters the frame and you've got 10 seconds to show this beautiful location. You don't have that. You have wall to wall dialogue. How does that change the way you approach a shot or a scene rather?
I still think it does and it doesn't. It depends on specific scenes, but more times than not, we would do a master of some sort, whether it's cowboys hips and up or something master, but we still tried to do a master, and then blocked it where we'd be forced to make cuts or forced to move the camera, one or the other. And on the rare occasion, and this happened on Social Network as well, especially the opening sequence between Jesse and Rooney when they're breaking up at the restaurant in Social Network. That dialogue happens so fast and so over top of each other that it becomes an editorial nightmare. And it's the few times where you're compelled to shoot two cameras opposing each other, two different directions. It's not ideal to light to, but if you block it out the right way and you have a common source from behind them and you stay on this side of the line, which you have to do basically, you can make it work. And that gives the editor and the director choices to take individual takes that will never be the same again and have things that match. And so that happens occasionally. And if you know it's going to be one of those scenes, you want to find a point where you can get them in that position where that coverage will actually help you out. Other than that, like we always just try to take each sequence and go, how can I add something to this? Or how can we get in or out of it that allows us, following somebody in, taking someone out, something wide to establish it, although there's not that many establishing shots. But, say like, for example, the table reads, we had an opportunity to introduce the entire set and come up from behind the bleachers and show off. And those kind of things are nice. Or the reverse, when Desi and Lucy first make their entrance onto that set, big stage, elephant doors fly open, the sun comes blasting in, they make this grand entrance. But it supported the story, it wasn't just showing off. It was telling the lay of the land. It was letting the audience see, like, what is this stage, where the different doors are. It's going to play later in other sequences. So you got to know the geography of this place. And so those all things kind of served us really well.